The Vitruvium Imperium, a nation born of a few adventurers who sought more freedom, wisdom, and power than their nation let them have. The Astarian Empire, due to the imminent lack of magical resources caused by the indiscriminate and bold use of magical crystals by the Astarian people, decided to create the Third Mandates, a series of rules and guidelines to a safe and prudent use of magical crystals, punished by imprisonment. But the Astarian folk didn't see this as a mere set of rules, but a violation to their basic rights and fundamental beliefs. Therefore, some, in search for freedom and tales of fertile lands when they could find a new magical resource, left the Astarian Empire. And one of those groups were the first to discover what would in the future be known as the Vitruvian Imperium. Zirix Starstrider is the current leader of the Vitruvian Imperium. His hate towards the gods of Mithrion has led him to create a society without the need of faith or gods. But how did this hatred grow in Zirix? This is his story. Chapter 1. Zirix Starstrider. The hourglass had a crack in it. Zirix's mother had given to him, a tool for meditation. When the time comes for the rite of melting, she said, think about the hourglass. Now, sitting on a bench in a walled garden, Zirix watched him trickled out through the crack. He took a pinch of sand between his thumb and forefinger. A hot wind blew through the garden, dispersing the rest. Zirix! A metal-skinned figure ran toward him, adroitly navigating the garden's path and ducking beneath the tree's verdant branches. Flowers swayed in a wake, exhaling great golden drifts of pollen. She trembled to a halt before the bench, sleek, the dapple light reflecting over Sandshield. Everyone's looking for you. He waved at his friend Belisara. I can't be late already. He had listened for the great bells that rang from the highest towers of Cairo. And of course, there was the hourglass. Surely a little sand more or less wouldn't affect its accuracy. Not enough that he would notice. Belisara had undergone her own rite just 2 days ago. Zirix remembered holding his breath as they buried her into the sands. He had bitten the inside of his mouth until he tasted blood. He did not know whether the rapid pounding of his heart was due to the envy or apprehension. Both of them had born 2 days apart, had always gone everywhere together. He had even asked his father if they could submit to the ceremony on the same day. Only 2 days, after all. But his father, concerned with the traditions as always, had refused. We will be the greatest heroes of the Imperium, Belisara said, offering her gauntlet hand. Zirix grinned and saw his distorted reflection in the polished sheen of her mask. He missed her bright eyes and her unexpectedly shy smile. For someone who loved the old stories of Atar, of Vitruvia's heroes, she surprised him sometimes with her bashful streak. Perhaps the ceremony had burned it out of her. Together, he said, grasping her hand. The metal joint stuck into his skin, but he gave no sign that it troubled him. Soon enough, he would have a sand shield of his own. He asked, is it very different? It wasn't the first time he would ask, but the adults always shook their heads and said, you will understand someday. Surely, Belisara was different, though. He couldn't read her expression behind the mask, couldn't tell what she was thinking. I'm still getting used to it, she said. But just see, hit me. He took her at her word and aimed a fist straight at her chest. She didn't dodge. His knuckles came away bloodied. The impact reverberated all the way up his shoulder. The half bell tolled. Your turn, she said. Together they left the garden. Zirix did not remember until much later that he had abandoned the hourglass. Chapter 2 Blindscorch. Beneath the serene skies and the sun's glaring eye, the sandpit awaited. Zirix Starstrider, Zirix's father, stood at the edge of the largest one. He was the tallest of the Vitruvians gathered. Around him waited the other Ridemasters, their heads bowed. The sun struck a torrent of light from their sand shields. Zirix, half blinded, kneeled before Zirix. His father had coached him in the rite. A chant to Eos rose around him, accompanied by the thunder of drums. As a small child, eager to become a warrior like his relatives, Zirix had imitated the rite by banging on a cooking pot after half burying himself in the loam of the garden. He remembered Zirix's booming laughter when he caught Zirix at it. Zirix's mother had been less amused. This time, the drums were real though. Through the noise Zirix heard Zirix saying, "Are you prepared for the gift of the sands?" Zirix knew the correct answer. "I am," he said, his voice wavering slightly. To his relief, no one remarked on it. Zirix held his hand out and helped Zirix to his feet. Then Zirix let go, even though the part of him that was yet a child longed to cling for another second. But he wouldn't shame his family or friends. Alone, Zirix stepped out into the pit, on the waiting path. He did not step too quickly, despite the heat. He swallowed a panicked gasp as he left the path and entered the pit. The chant crescendoed, as the sand soiled every part of him but his head. Hot sand trickling in through the openings in his clothes. The rite's lens focused its searing light on him. The sand melted and clung to his skin. To his hands, rose from the column of his neck to his face. One of the Ridemasters sang a discordant note, just slightly sharp. The lens wavered. Sand metal splattered and struck Zirix full across the face. Unprepared, he beat down on a scream. Zirix endured, and endured again. The sand metal seared him all the way down to the bone. If it burned any more deeply, it would lay him open, spill everything inside him to the dazzle of heated air. In the fever haze of pain, he did not know when he first realized that his father was not going to intervene and call a halt to the melding clearly gone wrong. "Father!" he cried. His tongue stuck to his mouth. He could barely get the word out. Each word hurt like it was dragged out of his marrow. "Father, please!" Zirix could make this stop. They could hold the rite of melding, heal him, try another day. He could see Zirix's broad form, a tremor of light glimmering off the familiar sand shield, and he saw to the second when Zirix turned his back. Chapter 3 Scion's First Wish. Beneath the lens of the melting rite, Zirix burned. If someone had offered to cut off his head, he would have accepted. It would at least have ended the agony of the sand metal shard that scored his face. The Ridemasters faltered, and their songs with them. Even the drums crashed into silence. "We must call this off," one of the masters said. Zirix knew most of the Ridemasters, who also served as his father's counselors. At any other time, he would have been able to identify the man's voice. Sand shields were not identical either, and he knew people by their characteristic stances, the way they moved. All of that dissolved amid the pain. "The rite continues," Zirix said. His words fell like hammer strokes. "He could die, Zirix," said another. "Your hair!" "The rite takes the form it does for a reason," Zirix said, with a particular cold note that meant his temper was rousing. "Resume it, now." "Zirix, he's still a boy. There's no need." "Father," Zirix whispered. "Father, I'll do better next time, but please, make it stop." Even those arguing to hold the rite didn't hear him. "I cannot condone this," another master said. She started for the pit, intending to remove Zirix from it. Zirix blocked her path. Like a mountain he reared up before her, faceless. "Then you can leave," he said, enunciating every syllable with knife-point accuracy. "Or you can stay and continue the rite. I will permit nothing other." The lance continued to waver. "You're prolonging his suffering," Ikir added. "He will survive or he will not, but either way the rite must be completed according to the traditions." The master tried to pass him anyway. Ikir struck her with the back of his fist. She fell at the edge of the pit, sand shield clattering as their articulations scraped each other in an awful jangle. She did not move again. "Anyone else?" Ikir said. It was not a question. One by one the remaining rite masters resumed their places. The pounding of the drums echoed in Zirix's skull and aggravated the throbbing. If it worsened, he would shudder apart, flensed of everything but the desire of annihilation. The lance continued its dance. The light flared anew. Once again the sand mother forged itself to his skin and shaved itself around Zirix. Even as he writhed. "Eos will decide his fate," Ikir said. It was the last thing Zirix heard before he lost grip of consciousness, but he would remember the words and his father's pitiless voice for a long time. Chapter 4 Pyromancer. After his melting rite, during the slow days of healing, Zirix twisted in and out of dreams. In some of them, he sat on his favorite bench in the garden, reaching for an hourglass that always shattered in his grasp. In others, he washed his face, then gazed into the water. He wore no mask. The water contained no reflection, not even that of his eyes. Suddenly, furious, he smashed the basin aside. In the worst ones, his father, Zirix Starstrider, sat by his side, a tall, impressive presence. Even in the dim light, Ikir's shadow was agonizingly bright. Not once did Ikir say a word to Zirix, whether to comfort him or chide him. When Zirix surfaced closer to consciousness, he suspected those weren't dreams at all. At last he woke. His face throbbed dully. The unbearable scorching pain of the ride had passed. This he could endure. It wasn't as if he had a choice. Thankfully, the person who sat at the bedside was not Ikir, but his friend Belisara. "You're awake," she said, as if he didn't know that. "I'll get—" Zirix caught at her hand, then let go. He stared dully at the sheen of metal. The ride had succeeded after all. Now he too possessed a sand shield. He need never again rely on water like the children did. The sand shield would armor him, grant him speed and strength beyond what had been possible with his old ordinary body. He would have forgone it all in exchange for a father who cared about him. "Help me get up," he said. "You're still weak," Belisara said. "Not much of a ride, was it?" Zirix said. "Don't," she said in a hushed voice, but she helped him stand. "I want to go to the garden," he said. Belisara hesitated. "Please." "All right," she said, "but let me tell the guards to notify your father." This accomplished, they headed to the garden. Neither the breeze nor the shade made any difference to Zirix. Heat coiled within him, artifact of the rite. It would always accompany him now. He led Belisara past his favorite bench and all the way to the center of the garden, where there was a single limpid pool surrounded by fragrant purple-green grasses. The pool itself was one of the city's great treasures. Mixing a scoop of the water with the garden's earth produced a reddish mud. He applied it to his mask, as though it were paint. "That's where the scar is," Zirix said. It was just as well that he could not see what his face would have looked like without the mask. Belisara's answering silence worried him. Had he alienated her? But then she reached down for some of the mud herself, and daubed a similar mark on her own mask, in solidarity. "Your father will not be pleased," Belisara said. Then he should have thought of that before abandoning me to Eos' mercy, Zirix said. Some mercy it was. I will not rest until Eos and all the gods are abandoned by their followers. Despite everything, he could not hate his father. Family was family. The gods were another matter. Hey, thanks for watching. You can like this video if you enjoyed it, and please leave a comment down below if you have any suggestions for the video. I upload every week, but you can always subscribe to see when I upload. I plan on uploading always on Mondays, and I want to do every general's lore, and after that do the individual cards lore. You can follow me on Twitch if you want to see me stream Duelyst and Hearthstone. I stream Monday, Wednesday and Fridays, and sometimes I do bonus streams. You can also follow me on Twitter to know if any video is delayed or whatever, if anything happens. You can also use the code darens to register in the Duelyst page and get benefits like gold and packs. And yeah, thanks for watching, and see you next week. Goodbye.